Good afternoon and aloha, everyone. My name is Chuck Parker. I am the Vice President of Content here at PBS Hawaii. Thank you for joining us for this exclusive event featuring a sneak preview of the PBS Hawaiʻi Presents film Ah Quon McElrath, The Struggle Never Ends. The episode you saw today premieres on broadcast tomorrow night, October 17th at 8:30 p.m. And it can also be seen on our website at pbshawaii.org and our YouTube channel at PBS Hawaii. On your screen, you'll see a QR code. Please consider a gift to PBS Hawaii. Thanks to viewers like you, we can continue to provide these free virtual screenings, events, and other programs. So I want to jump right into why we're here for this section of the program this afternoon. Joining me is producer Chris Coneybeare and producer, director, editor Joy Chong-Stannard. And thank you both for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So congratulations on a real wonderful, inspiring, and important film as well. And I want to just throw this out. The first question out to both of you is, what inspired you to make this film?
Well, I'll go first. I knew Ah Quon McElrath's daughter when I was doing community organizing and practicing law in Cleveland, Ohio. And I was moving to Hawaii, and I called Gail up and I said, well, you're from Hawaii, what should I do? And she said, well, you should call my family, call my folks, and don't let them scare you. And I did. I called, and Bob McElrath answered the phone and said, hey, AQ, there's another one of those Howley boys out here that Gail sent, come and talk to him, So anyway, AQ and I started talking, and she said, well, you got to come down here right now to the ILWU. And she took me to lunch at the Kapilani coffee shop for oxtail soup. And for the next almost 30 years, we met almost every month for lunch somewhere. So she became a friend. And then I started learning about all the stuff she'd done. And Joy and I were doing this program called Rice and Roses about working people in Hawaii. And AQ generously introduced me to many of her colleagues and friends. And Joy and I used that as an introduction, and that's how we collected a lot of the archival information that you are going to see in the film tonight. And we also have much more at ILWU at West Oahu. So Joy, how about you?
Well, just for the many years that Chris and I have been working together dealing with people's history, plantation history, AQ was a pivotal figure in that conversation. And so for me as a Chinese American, she was really an inspiration. I mean, she was basically my mother's age. And to see someone of that, she was so articulate, seeing someone like that at the forefront of the labor movement was so inspiring. And so, eventually, as I got older and I met her, and, just knowing someone who was a great role model, I think, for women, especially women of color, in the back of my head, I said, we got to do something to have her recognized and remembered. And I think Chris will agree with me. Unfortunately, these days, a lot of people don't even remember what the plantation was. And so all that labor history has been lost for a lot of people because we don't really talk about it. So she represented a lot of things, women at the forefront, labor history, people's history. And so we thought it was really important that we, remember her.
Let's talk a little. Go ahead, Chris. Sorry. Yeah.
Absolutely right. I recall in about 2012, I was invited to give a presentation to the Labor Department. And they had the heads of all there's like 30 divisions in the Labor Department, and all the heads of the thing around the table. And I started talking about, people were looking at me like they didn't know what I was talking. I said, how many of the people here knew Ah Quon McElrath or know who she was? I would say only 30% of the audience even who knew who she was. And this was 2000. This was just 2 years after her death. So I immediately said, well, we got to do this. So Joy and I have kind of conspired together to get this to happen for some time. And finally things got moving. And 2015 or 16, I think. So yeah, we want her to be known, to be an inspiration for future generations. We want young people who are in school now to realize that they can accomplish things even if it looks daunting, even if it looks impossible. You don't have to give up, you just have to keep at it. So that's what I learned from AQ.
Well, one thing I want to sort of continue on with talking about Ah Quon or AQ, as you say. One thing that struck me about the film, the history, is her, how do you say, her strength of character to not only speak out, but speak out for what she believed was right, for equal treatment. As a woman in the time frame we're talking about, women in general not treated equally. Yet that didn't stop her. It was almost as if the 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 challenges in front of her were her inspiration to fight for what she believed was right. And you guys have just talked about, how inspired you were by what she did and everything. In your interviews and doing the film, was that a consensus for everybody? Just her spirit, her energy.
Well, I mean, we did this program at that time called Rice and Roses, which was about working people in Hawaii. And invariably, Ah Quon would end up in one of the stories because she was part of something that we were talking about. And it was just also, you know this, Chuck, as a producer, you could always count on a great soundbite from AQ. You could always count on her coming up with a strong answer and with not equivocating. And if you wanted an opinion, she was not shy. And so it was really good for those of us trying to put together something that she was there and she would tell us what. And the other thing is, you'd ask her a question, she would just start talking, and maybe for another 3 or 4 minutes, you couldn't even get her to stop. And she would do it in paragraphs. She would talk in, like, her thought patterns were organized so that when she spoke, she almost spoke in, paragraphs like you were reading it. And she'd do it without notes. It was amazing. She's just an incredible intellect.
Why should people know about her, remember her?
Well, I think part of people should know about her is to know about her, you have to know about the history of Hawaii from the days of the plantation through the 50s and then on. But she was always present at some of the pivotal moments in history. She was a volunteer. As a student, she started volunteering in the late 30s with the labor movement, and she worked almost full time, even though she had other jobs. Being a volunteer, she helped organize the 1946 sugar strike. She helped the longshoremen in 1949, and her view of it was that people needed to take responsibility for their lives, and if they got together, they could do that and have something to say about the direction of Hawaii politically, that they couldn't just sit back. And her message was always, you have to get involved, you have to do something, and we have to work together. She believed that groups could do more together than just one individual.
So I want to hear your thoughts on that too, but I also want to acknowledge a comment here from one of our viewers, Orion Nebula. I'm sure that's an interesting name there, but thank you for contributing. Such an inspiring life. Love her story and her strength throughout her life. Thank you, Orion, for that. Joy, your thoughts on why we should know the history and why AQ should be remembered.
Well, I think, we take a lot of things for granted that we have now. Healthcare, vacation, 8-hour workday. And I think, AQ's story will remind us that, as we see today with a lot of the labor strikes that are happening in our state, that those rights are never something that we think that we have for the rest of our working lives. It's something we always have to struggle for. And so I think that's one of the big lessons that I think AQ symbolizes. And we also have to remember that she really worked for the greater good of the community. As John Waihe'e mentioned in the documentary, that was a time when I think we all thought that we could work together, right, to make Hawaii a better place to live. And I think if all of us remember that, as Chris mentions, if we all work together, it's not going to be easy, but if we have a same goal, that we can accomplish many things. I think a lot of people never realize when AQ was fighting for workers' rights that this could be accomplished. But her life symbolizes that if you work hard and you get together with other people, you cannot do this alone. You have to have just ordinary people on your side, and great things can happen.
Well, you touched on another question I have a little bit, but I want to ask it anyway and get you guys sort of thoughts on it. The title of the film, Ah Quon McElrath, The Struggle Never Ends. Let's expand a little bit on the second half of that title, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, Joy, and
I think
why.
Joy talked about it. Joy mentioned the fact that Ah Quon and her cohort at the time accomplished great things. They achieved, well, basically at one time there was 5 companies that controlled almost everything in Hawaii, called the Big Five. And Ah Quon helped lead ordinary working people to change that system from what was pretty much a feudal, almost feudal oligarchy to a modern labor democracy. And Ah Quon was one of the people responsible for that. Now, as history keeps going, we notice that there are people who are trying to change things back. And so you can't stop. You can't say, well, we did it. Okay, that's it. Bye. It's all done. Basically, AQ never stopped. She would always keep going. And basically, that's what we want the message to be, that you have to just keep at it. And you can make amazing changes, but you can't sit on your laurels. You can't just stop. So I think that's my view of it. Joy, what about you?
No, I totally agree with what Chris has said. And as the message is, the struggle never ends, as we can see in the headlines in our paper day to day, and that we have to just keep going and don't take things for granted, because there, instead of the Big Five, now we have multinational corporations, and it's a different industry, but they're going through the same struggles. It's the tourist industry, the hotel workers, and the nurses, and so forth. People are just not going to give you something. You have to fight for it.
Yeah, here's along these lines, a question from CJY, I believe. I wonder what she would have to say about the strikes happening now. If she were still around, do you think things would be different?
Well, I think what she'd say now is the same thing she said then. We got to work together. You got to go for your goals. You can't just sit back and let somebody take advantage of you. So I don't think her view about that would change very much. I think she would be probably disappointed that things keep reverting to some former existence, but she just didn't stop. I mean, that was her message to me. You can't stop. You got to keep going for it. And I think that's the message to the people today. You can't just sit back and wait for somebody to hand something to you. If you see something wrong, do something.
There's a great comment from another viewer, Richard Desmond, who says, I asked AQ how she became so articulate, coming from a humble Ivale background. She answered, we read books.
It's true.
Yeah. Great comment,
She's
Richard.
a great reader. She loved Shakespeare. She actually also acted. She was a singer. She loved music, and she was a big supporter of the symphony. So she wasn't just a one-dimensional person. She probably was maybe 5 feet tall and weighed 100 pounds soaking wet, but she was a giant. She was a giant presence wherever she was. She could make herself felt, and she could bring people together. So it was amazing.
I want to jump into another area here. So documentaries are not only time consuming, but expensive to produce. We have a question from Zach about, where did the funding come from the film? But I want to expand on Zach's question and discuss more broadly just the challenges in funding these types of documentaries. How do you do that? How do you start? Where do you start?
Well, in this one, we had another problem, and that is that Joy and I collected a lot of interviews with working people and about the events that are in the documentary. But we did that back in the 80s. And all that material was collected on formats that don't exist anymore. So before we could even think about having a documentary to tell those stories, we had to raise money to preserve and digitize 7,000, 3,000 to 7,000 items of film and videotape. So there was that. That's before we even got to the cost of a documentary. And basically, this documentary was not funded by any big grant. It was the UH Foundation collected money from donors who were willing to support it, and then also the Barbara Cox Anthony Endowment at the School of Social Work was happy to contribute something. But there was nobody came in and said, well, here's your $300,000. We had to raise it all piece by piece as we went along. And that's one of the reasons it took longer. We had to make sure we had material that you could put on the screen. And we went from there. So.
We have a comment here from Mo Oshiro. Congratulations, Chris, Joy, and Gail. You honor AQ, my friend and mentor who spoke truth to power with compassion and grace. I don't forget. So thank you, Mo, for your comment there. Joy, you produced several films that we have shared here on PBS Hawaiʻi over the years. And full disclosure, everyone, Joy also assists in producing two of our current programs, Insights on PBS Hawaiʻi on Thursdays and Kako, which also airs on Thursdays. And we have another one of those next Thursday. But what stood out for you, Joy, in producing this particular film about AQ?
Well, as Chris mentioned, part of the challenge was getting all of this material digitized. Now, there were a lot of films and videos in the CLEAR archive, the Center for Labor Education and Research, that we had never seen before, but they were just sitting there sort of rotting away. So fortunately, we had a couple, Marsha Mao, right? And Chris, her partner, husband.
Oh, I don't know. You have to say that again, Joel.
Marsha Mao, remember?
Oh,
Our
yeah.
benefactors, right? And her husband. They provided us with some of the funding to digitize a lot of this material, which a lot of it was a mystery. Okay. On top of that, AQ was so self-effacing. She never, hardly at all, was caught on camera, other than the interviews that we conducted with her, or perhaps she was on an old Rice and Roses program that preceded when Chris and I started working on the program. So we knew there was a treasure trove in there, but we did not have the funds to digitize, because digitizing video is very expensive, and digitizing film, because a lot of the film needs restoration. So we spent almost 10 years doing that, trying to get the video to look at. So every year we would wait and have some of it digitized, and we would get another portion of our funding to do that. So eventually, up until probably 6 months ago, I was still searching for video of AQ or any pictures of her. So that's why you see very little of AQ actually on camera. And so for someone who is dealing with a visual medium, that is really very difficult. So, and to understand AQ's story, you need to hear, to know about the history. So that's why there's a lot of history in this project. And so some of that material also came from the archives that we were able to digitize. So that was one of the biggest challenges. Even AQ's family didn't really have any pictures of her. And so they were, it was a very interesting project in the sense where your subject matter, your primary subject matter, hates being on camera. So luckily, we did find a few things here and there, and we were able to complete the project. So Chuck, I forgot your primary question, but that kind
Well,
of,
no, you kind of answered what stood out for you in producing, and it's
yeah.
all encompassing the effort, the waiting, the not knowing exactly what you have. That's, as you mentioned, as a producer, you're trying to put something together, and you don't, you got this sort of these undiscovered elements, and what's in there, what treasures are in there, but you have to wait until you are able to unlock those, what amounts of sealed elements before you can even just, decide what you want to do with them or how you're going to use them. I want to go to another comment real quick from Karen Ganoza. Thank you for this story. AQ and the ILWU influenced my life from growing up on a plantation and becoming a teacher leader. And she has in parentheses HSTA strike. So obviously AQ touched a lot of people. Want to go back to what you're mentioning, Joy, about all these elements you have. And Chris, you kind of touched on this earlier in mentioning Ulu. So you have all this material. Once you uncover it and get it digitized, so to speak, from a format that's not usable to one that is usable, you have all this material. Then you have to whittle that down into this time slot. Maybe I think it's 56 minutes, in all, which is not easy to do by any stretch. So what happens with what you don't put in the show? What happens to that material?
Okay, well, there's two things. One, we have a website, which is www.laborhistoryhawaii.org. And every month we take items from the archive and do little 30-second or 3-minute or 2-minute mini documentaries about it. Also, all this material is available for the public. All this material is accessible through ILWU. So we hope that in 10 or 15 years, when we're not on the stage anymore, somebody's going to go, oh my God, look at all this. Let's do something with it. So our goal was really to preserve this so that future generations could have the same. I mean, I was really lucky. I was invited into the homes of these men and women who made the ILWU happen, or who were part of the dock strike, or who worked with AQ on any of her projects. And essentially, we hope that other people can see this documentary and be inspired to know more about the history, to know more about their own history, to find out what things might be happening right now that they can get involved in. And we hope, I don't know if it'll happen, we hope that this gets used throughout the school systems. But anyway, at least we got it there.
That was actually my next question is, will this be available for educators to utilize either for lessons or for history, whatever it might be?
Oh, definitely. That's one of our goals, is that educators, basically it's students, educators, the general public, all of them, we hope, will benefit from having access to this material. But important is that it becomes part of the curriculum in various institutions of education, because this history is not told. This history is really hidden. This history has been forgotten, and we're really pleased that we could help bring a part of it back. But we hope that makes people curious about what else is happening, what else went on, what could I do, and then what can I do now? So those are all the things we hope, the questions that we hope this.
I have another comment I want to share from Doug Lamerson. Thank you, Doug. Mahalo for this great contribution to the contemporary consciousness. And I'm going to read another one here from Marcia Schweitzer. In the short clip of the symphony, you saw clarinetist Jim Moffitt, who is now the president of the Musicians Union, Local 677 AFM. AQ was huge support for musicians in the symphony labor disputes in the 80s and 90s. So her impact was, even broader, as you folks have mentioned. I also want to a little bit of clarity for folks who don't know what ILWU is. It's the Henry Juni Moving Image Archive. I believe that's the name. It's on the UH West Oahu website. It is a treasure trove of imagery and visuals from all facets of life, if you will, and productions here in Hawaii, including there's some PBS Hawaiʻi elements there, but from filmmakers, from the news stations, from us, from others, there's a lot of, it's a valuable resource. So a little plug for ILWU.
I have to say, if
yeah.
if you look at the boxes that came from PBS, lots of boxes to the ILWU site, I would say 2/3 of them had Joy Chong's name on them as the director of the program or a producer or something. So
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Siri's listening to us.
By the way, Chuck, I just wanted to, once again, I'm having a senior moment, but I remember it's Frank Moy and Marsha Mao,
Okay.
who are benefactors that allowed us to digitize almost 3,000 tapes, which are now housed at ILWU. So scholars or students or people, even relatives of the people we interviewed, can go and view the tapes that are available, because they've been busily cataloging as things get digitized, and look at the full interviews of the people that we've interviewed throughout the many decades Chris and I have been working together. So I'd like to acknowledge Frank and Marsha for their generous support for digitizing all of those, providing the budget to digitize all of those tapes.
Definitely.
Ah Quon fought for so many things, including what amounted to a living wage, so to speak, for thousands, plantation workers, dock workers, and others. But that phrase, a living wage, you still hear it today, even in the legislature, which finally passed an increase in the minimum wage. Why? I guess it goes to the title, "The Struggle Never Ends." I'll say, why is that? Why do we keep hearing that? And what lessons can we learn from the film about why we have to keep fighting for it?
Well, I mean, basically, the message that we're trying to get across is that you can make gains, but you can also lose them. And that's just the way history works. So it's not like I can give you any one cause, but certainly there's still a problem with so many social issues today, including fair pay, including minimum wage. I mean, the federal minimum wage is only $7.25 an hour or something like that. We're not doing that much better here in Hawaii either. Some places have gone to a $15 an hour minimum wage, and some people are paying $20 an hour. But anyway, it's incremental, and so you can achieve this victory here, but that doesn't mean you can sit back and be satisfied. I don't know how else to say it.
You mentioned this a little earlier in our discussion, Chris? Did you folks? Well, what were your goals in producing the film, and did you achieve them?
Well, I mean, the first goal was to get it done.
Congrats, you got that.
The goal was really to be able to marshal all of this material that we collected about Hawaii's history and make it accessible in some fashion, and making it accessible through the persona of a strong, empowered woman like Ah Quon McElrath made it even more interesting for us. We thought it was better to have somebody like AQ story being told. We have a lot of stories about the men who have been part of our history, but we don't have as many about the strong women who have been part of our history. And so part of our goal was really to capture what she was like and what Well, first, one thing is education made her sort of what she was. And we just want it to continue. We want people to be inspired and to keep going. And yes, I think we achieved part of our goals, but we won't know until, you know, people start using it or not. We want people to start using it. And I will be involved with helping to get some more of that use to happen, even though I'm retired from the university now. But other people are going to have to pick up pick up the whatever you pick up and go for it. So we hope this gives some people a thought about what they might do and what they can do together. Um, and that's another one of our goals. And I think we've achieved all of that. Whether it will be used or not, that's something that the people out there are going to have to struggle for and make sure it happens.
Joy, your thoughts on that?
I think all that Chris said, and I think the biggest hope is that we inspire people to just keep going, keep struggling. I think, we all get together for a common cause. I think good things will happen.
Cool. One more comment here from Marilyn Seeley. Enjoyed the history. I learned so many things about AQ and others I did not know. To your point, Chris, how's that? I had the privilege of working with her on a number of occasions, and she is unforgettable. Agreed completely on that, Marilyn. So this actually, everyone, this time flies. This concludes our panel discussion for the day. Thank you all for spending your afternoon with us. Again, we're sorry we couldn't get to all your questions. PBS Hawaiʻi will be sending you an audience survey via email for your feedback on today's event. This helps our team continue to improve these screenings. If you have a moment, please offer your insight to help us out there. Also, again, as I mentioned earlier, on your screen is a QR code. Please consider a gift to PBS Hawaiʻi. Thanks to viewers like you, we can continue to provide these free virtual screenings and other events. To donate, simply scan the code with your phone, take you directly to the donate page on our website. Again, the film you saw today, Ah Quon McElrath, The Struggle Never Ends, premieres on broadcast tomorrow night, Thursday, October 17th, 8:30 p.m. Can also be seen on our website at pbshawaii.org and on our YouTube channel at PBS Hawaiʻi. On behalf of myself, our panelists, Chris Coneybeare, Joy Chong-Stannard, the rest of the staff here at PBS Hawaiʻi, mahalo and aloha.
Aloha.